Welcome back. Picture this. It's 3 a.m.
The witching hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The house is completely silent. The world outside is asleep, but your mind is just racing. You're gripped by this terrifyingly vivid, hyper-detailed vision that feels, honestly, it feels more real than your waking life.
Right.
That is the exact scenario we are stepping into today. We're exploring a really fascinating dream diary entry titled Another Conversation with the Demon King.
Yeah.
And it was recorded by an author named Zifeng in the early dark hours of December 11th, 2019.
It reads less like your traditional diary and much more like a modern myth, or even like a high-stakes psychological thriller.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at a profound piece of allegorical storytelling here. It taps into some really deeply rooted human anxieties about control, temptation, and the systems we live under.
So our mission for this deep dive is to map out this intense narrative. We're going to follow the narrator, who actually refers to himself in the text as the Chaos Immortal.
Great title.
It really is. We follow him as he travels through a literal space-time tunnel to confront the absolute ruler of the underworld.
A face-to-face showdown.
Right. Now, before we step through that portal, I need to lay down a crucial boundary for you. This source material directly names real-world religious figures. We're talking about Jesus, Buddha, God, and the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back.
It doesn't. And because the text weaves in these very intense spiritual themes and theological concepts, I want to explicitly state that our deep dive today is not taking any sides.
No.
We are not endorsing, we're not validating, and we're not critiquing these specific religious viewpoints.
Our lens today is strictly analytical. We are looking at this text to unpack the philosophical ideas, the rich structural metaphors, and the literary themes.
Right.
We are treating the author's vision as a landscape of ideas to explore, nothing more.
We are simply your tour guides through this surreal architecture. Okay, let's unpack this, because the setting of this story immediately subverts expectations.
It really does.
When you hear the word underworld, you probably picture, fire, brimstone, eternal darkness.
The classic Dante Inferno stuff.
Exactly. But when the Chaos Immortal arrives through the space-time tunnel, he steps into this dazzling, blindingly bright palace.
Yeah, the walls and floors are constructed of flawless, spotless gold.
Spotless gold. It projects this solemn, overwhelming grandeur. And the security possesses this cold, militaristic intimidation. There are handsome, heavily armed guards stationed every 3 to 5 steps.
Every 3 to 5 steps. It is an absolute fortress of weaponized luxury.
Weaponized luxury. I love that phrase for it.
Well, the narrator navigates these winding, luminous corridors until he reaches the main hall, and elevated above the entire space on dozens of sweeping steps sits a red jade throne.
Which is just a striking visual.
Right. The throne itself is inlaid with countless gemstones refracting sharp light in every possible direction. The visual design of the space is entirely calculated to make the visitor feel small, poor, and entirely at the mercy of the throne.
And sitting on that throne is the Demon King himself.
But he doesn't have horns.
No horns, no cloven hooves. The text describes an exceptionally handsome, elegant man radiating this majestic aura, and he's flanked by 16 beautiful, seductive women.
16.
Yeah. The entire aesthetic is completely designed to overwhelm the senses and command absolute submission.
What's fascinating here is the ideological clash that happens almost immediately. The narrator, identifying as the Chaos Immortal, looks at all this spotless gold and flawless gem work, and he actually critiques it.
He's not impressed.
Not at all. He points out a glaring void. He says there is no nature. There are no blue skies, no drifting clouds, no ancient trees, and no wildflowers.
It's entirely synthetic wealth.
Exactly. He boldly tells the Demon King that the heavenly, natural realm is infinitely superior to a palace built only on jewelry and luxury.
Which opens the door for just the ultimate gaslighting tactic by the Demon King.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It really is. The narrator is standing in the middle of this oppressive opulence, essentially asking, where are the trees?
Yeah.
And the Demon King replies by claiming that he actually created the Garden of Eden.
He takes credit for it.
He claims he gave humanity the blue skies, the green mountains, the clear waters. But, according to his version of history, humans ruined that natural paradise.
Right.
Because humanity couldn't handle the blessing of Eden, he now offers them this spotless, ultimate, materialistic paradise instead, arguing that this is what they actually worship.
It is a brilliant, manipulative psychological pivot. He is standing in a fortress of gold, telling humanity that materialism is our own fault.
Yeah.
It shifts the blame for the superficiality of the world entirely onto human nature. He's positioning himself merely as the ultimate provider of what we fundamentally crave.
It establishes a deeply tense dynamic. The banter between them is so sharp. The Demon King looks down from his elevated throne and asks the narrator, "Are you here to submit to me, or are you here to steal my magic?"
And standing at the bottom of the steps, the narrator laughs. He laughs and says, "Actually, I'm here to hold you accountable."
Which is crazy. Delivering a line like that to the ruler of the underworld, surrounded by his personal guard, that is a massive, highly dangerous provocation.
The narrator realizes that instantly, too.
Yeah, he does.
When the Demon King feigns anger, the narrator backpedals hard. He gets very polite, claiming he doesn't have the courage for a rebellion and just stopped by for a cup of tea.
Just a cup of tea.
It is a highly relatable, very human moment of realizing you just mouthed off to the wrong entity.
We've all been there. Maybe
Yeah.
not with the Demon King, but
Yeah.
But then, the narrator drops a theological bombshell. He looks at the Demon King and asks, point blank, "Is the God of the Bible actually you?"
And the Demon King answers without a second of hesitation. He says yes.
He just owns it.
He claims absolute dominion over the human world, asking rhetorically, if not me, who else?
That is a staggering claim within the context of the story. The narrator pushes back, of course, asking if the Demon King isn't terrified of being punished by Buddha or the true God for impersonating them or usurping that authority.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this touches on some profound historical philosophy. It specifically mirrors ancient Gnostic ideas where the material world is ruled by a harsh, bureaucratic architect rather than a loving creator.
That makes a lot of sense.
The Demon King doesn't view himself as a rebel or a cosmic outlaw. He presents himself as the ultimate cosmic middleman.
Little man.
Yeah. He claims his absolute duty is maintaining the dynamic balance of the universe. He insists that Buddha and God will not punish him because he is performing a brutal but necessary job. He is the one who enforces the rules and punishes the rule breakers in the human realm and in hell.
Wait, but how does he justify that? Because the text mentions he casually blinded the narrator in one eye,
Yeah.
and he calls it a light punishment because he actually likes the narrator's lustful nature.
Right.
He even threatens to blind the other eye. How does blinding someone for a character flaw equate to dynamic balance? Isn't that just a tyrant justifying his own cruelty?
That is the central, terrifying logic of his character. In his view, cosmic justice and tyranny are indistinguishable. If a human steps out of line with the rigid, mechanical laws of nature or morality, the Demon King believes he possesses total, unquestionable authority to break them physically or spiritually.
It's ruthless.
He even brags about driving away Jesus, claiming Jesus' teachings of unconditional love and forgiveness threaten to ruin his perfectly balanced, punitive system.
Because he sees grace as a disruption to his machinery.
Exactly. Grace breaks the rules of cause and effect he relies on.
That brings us to the actual negotiation between the two. The narrator isn't trying to liberate all of humanity from this machinery. He has a highly specific, very humble mission.
Very humble.
He asks the Demon King to let him guide just a tiny fraction of souls out of the cycle, 1 or 2%, or even just 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000. He's effectively asking for a rounding error.
And the Demon King refuses to yield even a fraction of a single percent.
Not even 1 in 10,000.
To explain why, he outlines the terrifying statistics of his operation. He boasts about an astronomically high success rate. To put it in perspective, he points out that historical spiritual giants like Buddha and Laozi, the ancient Chinese philosopher who founded Taoism,
Right.
they only managed to sneak a few dozen souls past his borders.
A few dozen out of billions.
Everyone else gets caught in what we can call the Demon King's trap matrix.
A trap matrix. The author details the exact architecture of this trap matrix, and it functions like a perfectly optimized funnel designed to exploit our baseline evolutionary needs.
It really is a funnel.
The Demon King breaks it down by percentages. First, he deploys money. He claims that money alone successfully traps over 80% of all humans, turning them into willing slaves.
Notice how the Demon King allocates his resources here. He doesn't need to deploy literal demons with pitchforks to torment 80% of the population.
No, the economy does that for him.
Exactly. Money functions as an algorithmic capture of human attention. It is tied directly to survival, shelter, and status. It consumes the vast majority of human energy so that people simply never look up at the sky.
They're too busy looking at their bank accounts.
Right.
Now, if you somehow navigate past the all-consuming pursuit of money, The next filter is power.
Right.
The desire for authority, dominance, and control nets another 5% of humanity.
Which brings us to 85% total.
Right. After that, he relies on earthly attachments. This category captures 7 to 8% of people through fame, social status, physical beauty, family ties, and romantic love.
It is brutal that he groups inherently positive human experiences like family and romantic love alongside vanity and fame.
It feels unfair.
But within the strict allegorical framework of this story, anything that anchors your soul heavily to the worldly realm, even love, becomes a tether that prevents you from ascending or escaping the cycle.
And if the carrot doesn't work, he uses a stick. The next 7 to 8% are trapped by sheer suffering. This encompasses poverty, hunger, war, disease, fear, and death. People become so overwhelmed by the sheer terror of survival that higher spiritual thoughts become an impossible luxury.
When you aggregate those numbers, nearly 100% of humanity is securely caught by money, power, attachment, or suffering.
Dave Taup.
The system is ruthlessly efficient, but the Demon King reserves his most insidious psychological warfare for the tiny fraction of a percent who actually figure out the game and try to escape.
So basically, if the massive forces of the economy, political power, and raw fear don't work on you, he hits you with spiritual distraction.
Right.
For the Seekers, he uses mystical, academia, magic arts, and obsessive religious practices. He makes them dizzy with complex methodologies, so they lose the forest for the trees.
They get caught up in the rituals.
Exactly. And if someone still isn't distracted, the Demon King says he will deploy minor gods to perform fake miracles.
Fake miracles.
It's the spiritual equivalent of a highly targeted pop-up ad, dazzling them with parlor tricks to feed their spiritual ego.
It is a defense in depth. He gives the ultimate seekers a fake enlightenment. They feel they have escaped the maze, but he just placed them in a more comfortable, esoteric room within the exact same prison.
The narrator listens to this flawless system and is clearly overwhelmed. I mean, who wouldn't be? He asks the Demon King, are there any other secret tactics you haven't mentioned? Can you tell me a little about the hidden traps?
And the Demon King just laughs at him.
Right.
He says, you think you can trick me into carelessly revealing my secrets? If I told you the hidden traps, would I still be the Demon King?
Classic villain response.
But that exchange crystallizes the absolute power imbalance. The Demon King controls the board, the pieces, and the rules of the game.
If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, the system is rigged, how do we get out? That is exactly where the narrator's mind goes next. Realizing he cannot dismantle the Matrix, the Chaos Immortal pivots to pleading for a highly specific, vulnerable group. He mentions 200 to 300 of his own followers, referring to them as the Chanyuan Grass.
That name carries a lot of metaphorical weight. Chanyuan relates to a Zen or meditation courtyard, a place of spiritual cultivation.
Okay.
And calling them grass implies they are humble, fragile, but constantly trying to grow upward toward the light.
I like that imagery.
The narrator has spent over a decade nurturing this tiny community, and he literally begs the Demon King to open a tiny hole in the net just for them.
He pleads for mercy, and the Demon King's reaction is freezing cold. He calls the narrator delusional for thinking a cosmic architect makes backroom deals.
No exceptions.
He states, I am a god who strictly enforces the rules of heaven. I will not let a single one go. And then he outlines a highly specific, multi-layered plan to annihilate the Chanyuan Grass.
It begins with external attrition. The Demon King vows that for every single physical home or community this group builds, he will orchestrate its destruction.
Just constant pressure.
Build another, destroy another. He wants to trap them in a cycle of poverty and exhaustion until they lose all faith in their mission.
But the physical destruction is just the warm-up. The real threat is internal sabotage. The Demon King promises that if external forces fail to crush their spirit, he will infiltrate their consciousness, their blood, and their bone marrow.
That is terrifying.
He vows to activate their latent demonic and bestial natures to the absolute maximum.
He is talking about weaponizing their own human flaws against them. Instead of attacking the sanctuary from the outside, he injects paranoia, jealousy, and suspicion directly into the minds of the followers.
Making them turn on each other.
Exactly. He forces them to turn on each other, mutating their spiritual haven into a toxic, inescapable environment of mutual psychological torment.
And the final, fatal blow is aimed directly at the narrator's reputation. The Demon King details the character assassination he will orchestrate. He tells the narrator that society will turn against him completely.
Complete ruin.
The public will brand him a massive liar, a cult leader, a rapist, a hypocrite, and a homewrecker. people will be convinced he has sinister motives.
Yeah.
Finally, the Demon King promises to utilize the actual state apparatus, the machinery of government and law enforcement, to throw the narrator into prison. He looks at the narrator and asks, "With all that, do you really think your followers have any hope of escaping my net?"
The sheer weight of that multifaceted threat is physically crushing. The Demon King is threatening to dismantle the narrator's reputation, his life's work, his community's cohesion, and his personal sanity. And he's utilizing the very real, tangible mechanisms of human society and human psychology to do it.
Hearing this master plan, the narrator experiences a visceral bodily reaction. The text describes him feeling as though all the blood has suddenly been drained from his veins.
He just shuts down.
He collapses onto the flawless gold floor, paralyzed by a profound, suffocating hopelessness. Tears pour down his face. Filled with desperate, helpless anger, he opens his mouth to scream at the Demon King.
And right as he tries to shout, he suddenly wakes up.
He wakes up.
The tension immediately snaps. He opens his eyes in his quiet room at 3 a.m., safe, but heavily impacted by the realization that the entire confrontation was a Nanki dream.
Which is a very specific, loaded term to use. For those who might be unfamiliar, what exactly does a Nanki dream signify?
It refers to a famous ancient Chinese story about a man named Chun Yufen. In the story, he falls asleep under a scholar tree and dreams that he travels to an intricate, massive kingdom.
Right.
He marries the princess, becomes a high-ranking official, experiences decades of immense wealth, political battles, and deep tragedy.
A whole lifetime.
Right. But when he finally wakes up, he realizes only a few hours have passed. He investigates the tree and finds a massive ant colony. His entire grand, dramatic life was just the bustling of ants in the dirt.
Wow.
So calling this a Nanki dream is the ultimate metaphor for the fundamental emptiness of worldly struggles, wealth, and systemic power.
So what does this all mean? We've just journeyed through a space-time tunnel, stood in a blinding gold palace, and listened to the ultimate cosmic middleman lay out a foolproof system for trapping human consciousness.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. But regardless of whether you view this text as a spiritual allegory, a modern myth, or a reflection of the author's own deep-seated anxieties, the trap matrix the Demon King describes maps perfectly onto our daily reality.
Perfectly.
The algorithmic capture of money is real. The ego trip of power, the heady anchor of needing social approval, and the sheer exhaustion of just trying to survive are forces we navigate every single day.
This raises an important question about how we allocate our own internal resources. The Demon King operates on the premise that humans are fundamentally easily distracted and reliably corruptible.
Which we often are.
Yeah. He relies on the fact that we will exhaust ourselves fighting for spotless gold floors while completely forgetting to look for the blue sky. It forces you to critically examine your own life and ask how easily your personal values are compromised by the exact systems described in this vision.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The realization that the Demon King's most devastating weapon wasn't a magic spell or a demonic army. It was internal paranoia.
Yes.
It was his ability to weaponize our own unmanaged fears, our jealousy, and our suspicion against the people we are actually trying to build a life with. Our biggest threats aren't always external. They are the blind spots in our own psychology.
When you view the story through that lens, the Demon King isn't just an external villain on a red jade throne. He represents the systemic and psychological gravity that constantly pulls us away from our highest potential.
It is a massive concept to process, and it's the kind of imagery that stays with you long after you hear it. We want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own as you go about your day.
A little homework.
Exactly. If you had to sit down right now and map out your own personal Demon King's trap matrix, what would it actually look like?
What's catching you?
Right. What is the single most effective illusion currently keeping you from reaching your highest potential? Is it the golden allure of comfort and financial security?
Yeah.
Is it the heavy emotional anchor of earthly attachments and needing people's approval? Or is it a secret tactic, a deeply hidden blind spot in your own mind that you haven't even recognized yet? Think about it. Until next time, keep exploring.